This is The Roadmap with Ted Jenkin.
Hey everybody, this is Ted Jenkin and welcome to The Roadmap, exclusively here on America's Small Business Network. Every week I try to bring you some of the brightest and best CEOs and entrepreneurs all around the country in all kinds of businesses, blue collar, white collar, service, manufacturing, so you can learn how to start a business and scale a business, and maybe one day you too can exit stage left. I've got a tremendous entrepreneur today. He's an entrepreneur, but he is in the legal space. Scott Monge from Monge and Associates. If you live in Atlanta, I will tell you this, that you're not gonna miss him. He's basically on every billboard, on every bus, and you see this in a lot of cities across America. So, Scott, thanks for coming on the program today. Do you know, before I get rolling into my interview today, how many billboards and buses that you're actually on? Do you have any idea how many places that you're on now?
Well, first of all, Ted, thank you for the opportunity to be here today. And I would answer that question by saying there's always room for more.
I mean, it must be so interesting because, you know, when you're in any city in America, you'll see certain real estate agents or attorneys or heating and air conditioning companies. It just seems so dominant because everywhere you turn, you look at their marketing. How do you decide with $1 of marketing about what's important for ROI, which a lot of business owners look at, the return on investment, versus the branding? So one day somebody has an accident or something happens and they go, I've got to call Monge. How do you decide that as a business owner?
Well, the old joke is half my marketing works and half doesn't. I just don't know which half is half. So a lot of it is trial and error. And you know, just like Thomas Edison said, he knows 5,000 ways to invent a light bulb that doesn't work. I know a lot of things that don't work. So it's a lot of, I would say, to answer your question, it's a lot of trial and error.
But you've gotten so good at it over time, and I did these in my businesses as well. It's like, what does that look like? Can you walk a viewer through this trial and error process? Do you basically say, I'm going to take $10,000, I'm going to test out a Facebook or a Google ad, or do you say I'm going to spend $100,000 and I'm going to test 10 billboards in a certain part of the city? How do the metrics and how do you track it? How does that work in your business?
Yeah, it's really hard to track. And there's things that are, there's things for marketing that you do for branding, and there's things that you do to also generate clients. And ideally it takes some of both. And so in terms of making those decisions, every week we have what we call a vision meeting that I'm involved in, along with some of the key leaders in my organization.
Vision meeting?
Yeah. And we do a vision meeting, and we look every week in terms of what we're doing, and we track everything by what we're doing in terms of acquisition cost, how much does it cost per each client, and how does that compare to other things, to make sure that we're making the most efficient use of our resources and we're not squandering any resources on something that's not being effective.
Yeah, I want to say in advance, I feel for you. And the reason I feel for you is that when you become a successful business owner, you get on every email list, you get on every person that's selling advertising or marketing calls you up. Everybody that's got a charity wants you to donate $10,000. How do you choose how to say no? Because I know it's hard. I went through this, and you don't want to tell people no, but how do you make that choice? Because I'm sure everybody and their brother is calling you to say, hey, give us some of that advertising money.
Yeah, well, first of all, it's not easy. And you know, a lot of it, I feel like I don't really need to make those decisions. My practice has come a long way. You know, when I was born, advertising for lawyers was not even legal. It wasn't until 1976, and even then, it took a long time to really get mainstream.
Right.
And so, to answer your question, as far as how do you decide in terms of the allocation, a lot of it is just tracking things as best you can, as far as what's working and what's you know, and what's working the best, and just allocating the resources to those areas that are going to have the greatest rate of return.
So your business is a contingency fee model type business. Can you tell people like what that looks like? 'Cause a lot of people see these injury attorneys that may be on a billboard, or I know some people try longer cases when you see things like Roundup and weeds that may, you know, something may have killed people. How does that process work? Does it typically you get a case and then it settles in 60 days or 300 days? How does that process work?
So the way it works is there's no fees or costs unless you actually win your case and you get a result. So One of the great advantages of that is it levels the playing field, and it provides an opportunity for people that do not have the resources of the top 1% to
Right.
get top legal talent representing them. And so it helps balance the scales of justice and give everyone an equal opportunity to be heard, to have their voice heard.
I love that term, balance the scales of justice, because it's true, because an attorney might normally cost $500 or even $1,000 an hour. Most people can't afford that, but if you can win the case, it can be a win-win situation. But it does lead me to my question about this business model as a whole. If I have to bring on 20 clients and I don't make any money today, and I could make money in 90 days, in some cases, I guess in this business it takes years, how do you finance it? How do you keep the cash flow going until you have the business if you start this kind of business?
Yeah, it takes time. It takes time to build up, to scale, and with the cases, there are cases that I finance with my own money, and
Right.
so you really want to invest in the cases that you believe in and help people wherever you can.
But in the legal field, I know there are companies like Counsel Financial and other big companies that they may fund a lawyer with $1 million or more. It's almost seed money. And I know it's a very high interest rate, right? It's not like money you would get from the bank.
Yeah, that's right, and that's something that wasn't there in the early days of the profession, and it is there now. And so it's helpful in appropriate situations for those law firms to properly finance and build up the cases for their clients as strong as they can.
So I know you're only one guy. I drive my kids down to Auburn University. I come back in the state of Georgia. I see your face on a billboard. I'm driving around Atlanta. I see your face on a billboard. If thousands of cases come in a year, how do you manage that workflow, and how do you go about hiring attorneys to parcel out all these cases?
Well, that's a great team. That's a great question, and to answer your questions, with a great team. And so I go through, and in terms of just really finding, there's two core values that I look for. One is positivity, trying to find the
Love
nicest
that.
people you can find, and two is productivity, is just finding people who are going to be extremely hard workers, committed to the cause, and doing everything they can. Our mission is to make good things happen for other people, and so that's what we believe what we do.
Has it been hard with COVID and just in general as you go to the firm to just find talent in general? With unemployment being at 3.5%, it's the lowest it's been since the 50s, if you will. There's 10 million open jobs that are out there. COVID struck, people were working from home, and now you have to drag some of them back into the office. Is it hard to find talent today and hard to retain it?
Yeah, that's a great question. And to answer your question, I think it's always been hard. But in the words of Les Brown, there's always room at the top. It's the bottom that's overcrowded.
Right, exactly.
And it's just, according to the U.S. Department of Labor, 6 months after someone is hired, on average, they are no longer at that position anymore, which is an astounding statistic.
Wow.
And so I think a lot of it is a law of averages. And I think that we're all in the recruiting business. We're all looking for the best talent we can find, wherever we can find it. And it's not just a matter of having necessarily the education or the experience, but it's a matter of having the right attitude and aptitude. And there was a great book by Angela Duckworth called Grit, and it talked about what makes people succeed. And the conclusion that she came to was this quality of grit, that no matter what life throws at you, how hard it is, those that have that quality where they see the lessons in failure, get used to overcoming challenges, hardship, and adversity, are the ones that generally succeed.
I love that. I used to tell people in my company that the job of problem maker is filled.
Yes.
The job of problem solver, it's open. We have lots of openings for that. Because a lot of people come to work and they want to grow their careers. And do you do special things to try to retain the talent? How do you keep the culture at your firm to retain the talent?
Yeah, and it's so funny you should say that, because just yesterday, as a matter of fact, we had sent a link to our team, and the title was "Pressure is a Privilege." And it talked about exactly what you were talking about just now, Ted, which, as far as the title is, elite problem solver, and just having the expectation that life is hard, there's going to be challenges, and every day there's going to be things that don't go according to plan. But realizing that that we are in this position and we're in this place and with an ability to to do something about it,
right?
And to help other people along the way. And to your question, as far as attracting the talent, I think you want to go through, and really what I look for are systems and procedures that will naturally reward performance.
Yes.
And so that's what I'm looking for, because I always want to, that way it just is a naturally self-correcting process.
The legal industry has changed a lot in this sense that there was a time where the only people that could own law firms were lawyers. Like, you literally had to be a JD, or by law, you could not own a law firm. Now, my understanding is that it started in the District of Columbia that changed the rules, and there are states now like Arizona that are now allowing non-lawyer firms to own law firms. Is that the trend that's happening in the industry?
Yeah, that's a great point, and it's on a state-by-state basis. In those places you mentioned, and some others. And that's the great thing about our system, is you can experiment those things. And I think it provides a great opportunity to bring other talented people into the legal industry.
Yeah, because I wonder, you spend all this money. I think you built a world-class brand. I really do. But I know I did that myself in my business, and part of the value of a business is not only the revenues, and it's not only the EBITDA or the cash flows, but there's the goodwill of the brand. And how would you think about selling this business one day if you sold it at all? Do you have to find another high-powered lawyer that's in the personal injury space? How does that work?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's a challenging one to answer. Our state Supreme Court had issued a case which said that it's almost impossible to evaluate a contingency practice. So
really?
it is very difficult.
Just because cases come in and because you don't know how they're going to settle, everything is 1 year of revenue at a time. It's really like the revenue may not even be 1 year, just maybe what's going to happen the next 6 months.
Sure.
Is it predicated on caseload?
That's one of the considerations, for sure. That's one of the considerations. But anyway, but people come up with systems and procedures and they figure it out. But it is a challenging thing to evaluate.
Yeah, I also know that like a lot of business owners, you've also bought real estate as well in the business. Are you a bigger fan of doing the 19th floor of a law firm like a King and Spalding does in a building and lease out these fancy spaces with Andy Warhols in the lobby, or do you like the idea of being owner-occupied real estate?
Yeah, everyone has their practice model, and with ours, we own real estate, we lease real estate.
Yeah.
We've got a variety of practice models, and a lot of it just comes down to what's available in a given area. Is there something for sale, or is there something for lease?
How many TV commercials do you think you've done? I've seen you on a ton of them, hundreds of them.
I don't know, but I'm grateful for anything that I've done, and what you don't see also too is just the great team that makes it all possible. So,
in your kind of business, and I think this would be interesting for viewers, is that you are the face of the brand, and I think the first business I did, I actually made a mistake by being the face of the brand, but. Not saying, and we hope this never happens, that you went down for some reason, but if you did, could the company still run? Could it run given that you're the face of the brand everywhere?
Yeah, so we have a succession plan, and I'm surrounded by a great team of talented people, and so if anything ever happens to me, it would go on just fine.
On the other side of this, just knowing how much you branded, do you go out to dinner and people just notice you where you are and say, get people that give you the cross eyes, like they think they know you from somewhere just from seeing your face so much on every bus, every billboard, everywhere you go?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. What's more important to me is that I am in the role that I can be the greatest service and add the most value.
Yeah. I want to know, there's a final question in here. I feel like one of the things we want to expose our viewers to more is how you maintain peak performance. Because every entrepreneur, it's not just about growing your business, but it's like, how do I have that optimism, energy, enthusiasm to go make it happen every day? Are there things you do to try to keep yourself at just peak performance in general?
Yeah, in terms of peak performance, I think a lot of it is inspecting what you expect.
I love that.
What gets measured is what gets results. And so in terms of a team, because my organization would not exist without my team. So in terms of that, a lot of that is really just letting everybody know how they're doing. I mean, people generally want to know how they're doing. So providing helpful feedback as far as how they're doing. And at the end of the day, people are happiest when they're making progress. And
right, personal progress, not just financial, right?
Right, exactly. And so you got to have, with every life, you got to have some goals, you got to have some structure, and circling back to what you mentioned earlier, as far as business or selling business. I mean, I believe to retire is to expire. I mean, when you look at people that make a sudden exit from work and they don't have that structure of something else to do in terms of the next stage. I mean, heart attacks go up dramatically, all sorts of health hazards. So you want to make sure that you got those parts of your life in proper order.
Well, I wanted to say congratulations on all your success. I'm a fan. For you as a business owner, it's amazing how big of a business that you've built in such a tough field. There's so many people that are attorneys out there, but you've been able to separate yourself from the pack. And folks that are watching the roadmap in here, you have to ask yourself, I mean, you invest $1, as Scott talked about today, sometimes you just have to try it. Half of it's gonna work, half of it's not gonna work, but it's the only way to push the business forward. So I challenge you to take some risk here over the next 6 months, invest some marketing money, do some trial and error, see what happens, and that's how you can scale the business and maybe one day exit stage left. I'm Ted Jenkins, and this is The Roadmap.
Thanks for watching The Roadmap with Ted Jenkins.